about some of the laws that people don't even realize they could be breaking. I
Yeah.
mean, I just had a couple of them, like not taking the snow off your windscreen and letting
Yes.
the cat keep running. It's like, what sort of laws do people not realize they might be breaking?
Well, there's a wonderful article that I think we've both read by Dean Dunham, who is I think, the consumer rights editor or contributor for the Mail. Not my favorite paper, but an interesting article nonetheless. And he's probably the most prominent consumer rights lawyer in the whole of the UK. Now, consumer rights, but a few of those crazy laws or kind of obscure laws that he lists in his compendium in this article, they're motoring laws and criminal laws. Now, he's not a criminal lawyer. I am. So let's see if a criminal lawyer with, I suppose, probably more than 1,000 criminal cases under my belt, blowing my own trumpet. You know, us lawyers, we like to do that. Let's see if I agree with our Dean. And what I've done, if you'll humor me, Trisha, is I've picked a few from that list of my own. And let's consider whether what the article says is true, whether the claim is true, false, a bit misleading, or kind of maybe true or false, but a bit incomplete. And the first one that really struck me was a really kind of one that I think affects a lot of people, and probably people turn a blind eye in their own house to. And aren't we quick to judge others who break the law? How many people, Trisha, have one of those Fire Sticks to stream Amazon and Sky Sports without paying? We had the boxing last night, Francis Ngannou losing in the second round to the great British hero, Anthony Joshua, in 2 rounds. You might have felt a little bit shortchanged if you paid for that on pay-per-view. I certainly wouldn't advise you, however, to use one of those Fire Sticks. Trisha, there's a reason that some people call those Fire Sticks fraud sticks, and that's because the statement in that article is true. Section 11 of the Fraud Act, obtaining services dishonestly. It's actually plain old fraud. And there's a reason they call it that fraud stick. And there are also offences of possession of an article for use in a fraud from the Fraud Act 2006. And that was legislation brought out to combat precisely these type of tech crimes. Fraud Act offence, up to 10 years in prison. Well, I'm not saying that you should panic and put it on the fire quite so quickly with that Fire Stick just because you're going to get 10 years in prison. But I tell you what, even if it's non-commercial use, a fraud conviction, standard DBS check, above the basic one, criminal record, that can stay on your record for life for certain jobs.
Impressive. You know, talking about recording something, Steve Denyer, we were talking about all things showbiz, and he was telling us about a Bad Bunny suing somebody for filming his whole concert on their phone and then putting it on, you know, on YouTube or something.
Yeah.
So is that the same? If you film a pop star, you go to a concert, you film them, the whole thing, and then you put it on social media, are you breaking any laws?
Yeah, potentially copyright offences, but in reality, those are intended for people who are doing it for commercial use. You know, the old style bootleg records and bootleg videos, and then selling it. You know, back in the day, it'd be VHSs on a Sunday market, wouldn't it? Car boot sale. But there is a really important distinction with that type of thing between being sued, that's civil, that's an action for money. You know, what we say when you say, I'll sue you, it doesn't mean that you've committed a criminal offence. It means you've done something against my rights. And yeah, some people can be sued financially if they do things like that. I remember that when people in the early days of broadband, I guess kind of 10, 15 years ago in this country, people who were downloading a lot of movies got letters saying that they were going to be fined. And these was kind of civil penalties, not criminal. Don't think people are likely to go to criminal courts as a result of that.
Right. Okay. And so what other laws has he got there what about that one about, can you eat and drive, or can you get done for eating legally?
It's funny you should raise that one. I remember an episode of Have I Got News for You where the headline was somebody getting done for driving without due care and attention, 3 to 9 points and a fine can be dealt with in the magistrate's court for eating a Kit Kat chunky. And the suggestion in the article is, yes, it's an offence. They then go on to qualify it and say, well, actually, no, it's not an offence. Okay, so a little bit misleading, but it's all about attention, okay? If it was an offence, does anybody think that, if it was an offence per se, does anybody think really that they would be selling all these snacks and food at petrol stations, knowing that people are going to be eating them straight away? Of course not. It's about what's common sense. If you're not looking at the road because you're looking down at a drink or trying to open some sweets or whatever, you could be committing an offence, because a car is a lethal weapon. This is a huge, usually 2-ton piece of complex metal rattling along at speeds of up to 70 miles an hour. You should be careful. So offences can take place, but there's a difference between it being an offence to eat something. No, it's not. Or on the other hand, you're eating something, therefore your attention is elsewhere.
Well, we've got time for another quick one, because I tell you why it's a quick one, because I want to ask you about your tie. So pick another quick one, and then we're going to finish up with your tie. What's another one in that?
Well, here's an interesting one. Breaking, and this is probably one that we've all seen every time we see the blues and twos go by, and if it's a police officer on the road or it's an ambulance, and it's breaking another road law to make way for an emergency vehicle. And the article says this: many people believe that if they run a red light or pull in somewhere where ordinarily you shouldn't park, in order to make way for an ambulance or police car, it'll be overlooked by the law. But that is not the case, and you'll still be vulnerable to receiving points on your license. Law says that you've got to do so in a safe manner and not break any laws. I think that's misleading. I'm sorry, Dean Dunham. In fact, in practice, it's just plain wrong. Although you would be technically committing an offence, just think about it. If everybody who did that was committing an offence, it would discourage drivers from, let's say, going forward at a junction where there's a red light to let an ambulance through. And that, as a matter of public policy, must be a bad thing. The truth is this: in most cases, driving in such a way to assist police or emergency workers to get by will be overlooked by the law. Either it's something called a special reason, which means the court wouldn't give you the points because even though you'd broken the law, there was something special about the circumstances, or the prosecution would decide it's not in the public interest to prosecute someone helping the police. So sorry, Dean Dunham, not too impressed with that, but I have to say, as a consumer rights champion, very impressed with you.